Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Justin. It's Saturday. That means it's time again for another trip to the movies. And today we're going to be doing the 2022 Matt Reeves directed The Batman, starring Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne / Batman. Also stars Zoe Kravitz, Jeffrey Wright, Paul Dano, Colin Farrell, others like John Turturro. It's a fantastic cast. And, rather than talk about the overall plot of the movie, I'll throw a little bit of what the plot is about. The main plot of the movie is Paul Dano's character, the Riddler, which this is a completely different take on past Riddlers, whether it's the 60s version with Frank Gorshin, whether it's Jim Carrey's version. Both were over-the-top comedic portrayals of the Riddler, and that's part of what his gimmick was. He uses riddles to try to outwit Batman. He's not the smartest criminal in the world, even though he likes to think he is, because he gives Batman, who's this amazing detective, all these tools to capture him. And you get that in the new Batman with a totally different take. He's portrayed brilliantly by Dano, and he's a serial killer. In this movie, he kills multiple important figures in Gotham City. I'm not going to spoil who. See the movie. But it's such a unique, depiction of the character by Dano. I am a big Paul Dano fan. His performances in There Will Be Blood, and along with this one, stand out as just absolutely fantastic performances, where they're really, the second fiddle. In There Will Be Blood, he played second fiddle to Daniel Day-Lewis, but he held his own in that movie against one of the greatest actors to have ever lived. And in this movie, it's a huge ensemble piece. It's a huge movie. It's the Batman. It's Batman. It's one of the most iconic figures in cinematic history. And he eats up every single scene that he's in. He's just got that tone that, you never really see his face until the end of the movie, but every scene he's in feels special. And other positives, Colin Farrell as Oswald Cobblepot, Oz. In this movie, he hasn't climbed to be one of the top guys in Gotham yet that we've seen in different, iterations of the character. But I'll say this, I don't think this character should ever be a lead villain in any movie Matt Reeves does, whether it's just a trilogy like Christopher Nolan. I think this character, and Colin Farrell was so good, I think it would be befitting to him, and it would not be an insult to say, hey, we want you to be the Cillian Murphy Scarecrow type character. You don't have a huge role in any of these movies, but the role you have is important, and it's memorable, and it just keeps you in these movies however long we do them. I think he's that important. I think he was that good. So that's another positive. Jeffrey Wright as he's not Commissioner Gordon yet. I believe he's Lieutenant Gordon in this one. I'm a big Jeffrey Wright fan. Say what you want. A black Commissioner Gordon, I got no problem with it. I've heard some people complain, with the comic books. I got no problem with it. I think Jeffrey Wright crushes it. I think they're building him up just like they did Gary Oldman in Christopher Nolan's trilogy, and I like that. I like seeing the character development and the relationship. You already have, in this one, as opposed to Nolan's trilogy, Batman and Gordon already are allies. They can only trust each other. So you already have that built in, but you're going to see more, I hope, of Wright's development into what kind of commissioner he's going to be. So you have all these great performances, and I enjoyed Pattinson as Batman. I think this movie really sets the tone on what kind of Batman he is. He's young. He's inexperienced. He still thinks like a young man, as opposed to using what will eventually, what is Batman's true calling. He's a genius. He thinks, he reacts to things differently, whereas this Batman is just hit you once, hit you twice, hit you 3 times, then maybe ask a question, and then when you don't answer it, I'll hit you again. Because he's young and inexperienced. But I really liked Pattinson's portrayal of Batman. But, and I'm not going to hold this against him, because I feel with how this movie ends, it really sets up the sequel to develop the other half of the character. Because as important as Batman is, Bruce Wayne is just as important. That's what I think makes, when a great Batman movie sees somebody who can portray a great Batman and at very least, acceptable Bruce Wayne. That's what Christian Bale was. I never thought he was a great Bruce Wayne. He had his moments, but he was an incredible Batman. Only Michael Keaton has ever really done both great. Michael Keaton, to me, is the greatest Batman and the greatest Bruce Wayne. You put that together, you get the best overall. But this movie wasn't about Bruce Wayne as much. It was about Batman. The sequel, I think, needs to be about Bruce Wayne. I also liked Andy Serkis as Alfred. It was a totally different take on the character. Somebody who doesn't really get along well with Bruce Wayne, but he still loves him, he still cares about him, but he's still a punk kid, and he's trying to teach him how to be a man because he hasn't had a father, and try to guide him on a path that isn't going to get him killed. And he's not afraid to talk to Bruce Wayne as if, as a father figure. I like that, version of Alfred. That's more than what you get from Michael Caine or, past iterations of Alfred. None of them were bad. This one, I just liked the twist. There were parts of the movie I didn't like. I wasn't a big Zoe Kravitz fan as the Catwoman. I don't like the character, the way she was depicted as, an overly sexualized character. I get that's what you were going for, a little bit more gritty, a little bit more raw. I wasn't a big fan of it. I'm a big Michelle Pfeiffer fan. I loved Anne Hathaway's take. There's just something about Kravitz's I didn't like. The ending was a little too weak for me. Parts of it I liked, but parts of it I thought were a little dumb. And, because of that, it those issues, as good as the movie was, it wasn't a great movie. It was a good first step. I would very much compare it to A Batman Begins in that it wasn't great, but I see a great future in the capable hands of Matt Reeves. I think Matt Reeves is a fantastic director, and I think if you go the right route, you could have a great trilogy or however many movies he ends up doing on his hands. So with that being said, taking in the fact that I wasn't a huge fan of Kravitz's portrayal as the Catwoman, parts of the ending, were a little weak in my opinion. It's still a good movie, but it's not a great movie. It's a 7.2. I was thinking, do I give it a 7.1? I think it's good enough it warrants a 7.2. It's a good movie, not a great movie, but I see potential in the future. So 2022's The Batman 7.2. That's my review. Please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. And I will see you guys next time at the movies. Take care.